Bring this meeting to order, the Amador County Board of Supervisors. We just came out of closed session and we approved the confidential minutes. They were the only thing. Wouldn't mind standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Public matters not on the agenda, discussion items only. No action will be taken. Any person may address the board at time limit. Supervisor Crew.
Chairman, if I may to start, I was at an ACTC meeting last Thursday and I got a compliment from a frequent critic of the Public Works Department, and he asked that I bring that up today so that everyone would know that as much as he beats them up when they do something right, he wants them to know about that. And it was former Supervisor John Plaz, who lives on French Bar Road, and is a frequent critic of the repairs that are done or not done or whatever. And he leaned over me and goes, "I want to talk to you about French Bar Road." And I leaned back, well, here we go. And he said, you know, they did about 100 yards, tore it up. They didn't come back right away, but when they did, they finished the job and they did perfect. And he goes, as much as I condemn some of their work, they did a perfect job, and I wanted everybody to know that. So, yeah, so I thanked him for him, and I hope the Public Works guys, it gets to him. I saw Jack, so it has to go both ways. That was his theory, so.
That's it. Anybody else? Supervisors? Anybody on Zoom?
Not at this time.
Okay. Approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. Consent agenda. Anybody from the public want to talk about the consent agenda? Anybody on Zoom?
No, not at this time.
Move approval.
Second.
Call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, 5-0 again. We're on to regular agenda. General Services Administration, RFO 23-08, livestock grazing at Carbondale Business Park.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good morning. John Hopkins, General Services Director. The agenda item you have there before you is the request for offers that we let out for leasing ground down at the property that's known as Carbondale Industrial Park, which is county-owned property, for a total of 171 acres. Turning me up here a little bit?
Yeah.
There you go. Originally, we thought that there was 152 out there, but we had to make an adjustment. It's been about 14 years since we were out there doing this, or since we've done requests for offers for this lease, but it was time to do so. In regards to the offers that we received, you should have that in your packet, and we received 3 written offers, one from John Andrea for $39 an acre, one from Morgan Livestock at $59.15 an acre, and one from Cheryl Clark, who's the current leasee or was a current leasee, at $50.53. In accordance with the government code, though, before you can accept any written offers, you have got to call for oral bids. And I know that I believe that there are 2 of those candidates here today, or I should say bidders here today, that may want to address the board. When you do that, the first written offer has to be at least 5% greater than the written offer received, which I believe would amount to about $62.10. But at this time, I would turn it over to the chairman to ask the general public if there are any oral offers that need to be called for.
On the first oral bid.
First oral bid, yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Thank you.
Okay, I will call for the oral bids. The first bid needs to be at least $62.10. come on forward to the speaker. Microphone, excuse me.
Hi, I'm Cheryl Clark, and yes, I bid 6210.
6210. Okay, thank you. Do we hear anybody else?
I am Rock Morgan. We would bid 6250.
6250.
Cheryl Clark again, 6275.
Thank you. 6275.
$63.
Yes, sir. 63. Even.
Told you we should have had Seth Seaver here. Been quicker.
64.
64.
$65.
65.
66.
66.
67.
67.
When individuals come to the microphone, they should announce their name, then their bid.
Yes, sir. The last one was from Brock, 67.
Cheryl, 68.
Cheryl, 68.
Rock 70.
Okay. Anybody on Zoom?
Not at this time.
Oh, that's right, this had to be in public, I'm sorry. Oh, they can? Okay. Anybody off of Zoom? Okay, calling once, calling twice. Sold.
Mr. Chairman, it sounds like Mr. Morgan, Rock Morgan, has the final oral bid there for $70 an acre for Carbondale. So that would conclude that. I would ask that the board give me direction to work with Mr. Morgan to get into a lease agreement for, and for you guys to approve the attached lease agreement for Carbondale Industrial Park.
That's for a 5-year period, correct?
It's for a 5-year term for 171 acres. Yep.
And can that be sublet or not without county approval?
Not without county approval.
Okay. I would so move to give staff that direction.
Second.
Call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Be 5-0.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Item 2B, presentation of a 2022 Amador County Agricultural and Livestock Report.
Good morning, Chairman Brown. My name is Eric Mayberry, honorable members of the board. I am here, as you said, to present our crop report for 2022. So just remember, all the numbers that we're talking about are for the prior year. The gross production value for all agricultural commodities produced in 2022 was around 38 million. And this is a 15% decrease from the previous year's production value, due primarily to wine grapes and timber, which we will be talking about on a previous subsequent page. I just need to remind everybody that the figures contained in this report represent gross values and vary grower to grower. So like for instance, the value of leased land in this county in our report says $20, and you can see In this case, we saw a $70 bid, so, for every $70, acre, there's gonna be one that's worth less than $20, so. I do wish to show some appreciation to all the, growers that turned in their information on a timely basis so we can get this done. There are several organizations, public entities that we reach out to every year. And then, of course, my staff, especially Casey Wright, who compiled the report, and she's with me, should I have questions. If we turn to the second page, I'm gonna kind of hit the highlights here. Wine grapes were down a lot. And as you probably recall, March of 2022, we had a large freeze. We obtained a disaster declaration from the state. 30% or so of the vineyards weren't even harvested. They just didn't even bother because there was nothing there to work with. But in addition to that, even if you were, let's say, the neighbor around the hill or whatever that did get a crop and got your crop in, the price was lower than it was a previous year. So, there really were no winners in 2022 for the grapes.
Did they get payments, though, from the government for crop loss?
So that hasn't happened since I've been doing this job. During March, I visited a lot of the growers, spoke to them. I went to grape grower meetings, and that was the first question everybody asks. And the best you're gonna get out of the government right now is a low-interest loan to help replant. And that low-interest loan has huge strings. The government requires, it's USDA, requires that you have collateral. So essentially, you have to put all your equipment up, and they want to be first on the title. So, if you own John Deere Corporation or whoever for your tractor, that's not going to fly. So there are so many strings attached in the modern era that the kind of help that a lot of people assume that is available is no longer available to farmers. This is a high-risk operation. These people are, literally risking their livelihoods, their homes, or whatever on these operations. And sometimes, at no fault of their own, Mother Nature does come in there and wipes them out. It's really terrible.
Thank you.
Yeah, the walnuts went down quite a bit on that same page, but there's a small sample size. There's few growers in that category. There's more people planting walnuts and almonds in the future, so I would expect that is something that we would see go up in the future.
What's the timeline for walnuts to be a producing crop?
It depends on how small they are when you plant them, but a minimum of 3 years. 5 is really what we expect. There's usually not enough nuts on the tree to, bother renting the shakers and the sweepers and all that kind of stuff that is required.
And I know
And
a
then
guy,
also, if they're too thin, like the walnuts, they usually don't shake the whole trunk like they do the almonds. They just shake the arms. And, when they're really thin or whatever, you're more likely to pull them out of the ground than you are to do anything. So they usually wait a couple of years until they're mature.
I know a guy that planted them about 5 years ago. He's sorry he ever put them in, based on the prices.
Yeah.
That's ag. That's ag.
It happens. I bought a house in Fresno some years ago, and I looked back in the records, and they had planted prunes, and then they put in figs, and they put in grapes, and over the years you can see what was popular over the different 70s, 80s, 90s, or whatever. For the most part, I think that this region is lucky in that wine grapes have a tendency to be, only increase in value the older that they get, versus if you have almonds, let's say, nonpareils maybe are really hot right now, but if you had buttes or caramels, or like most of the people up here at the dry farm, they do Hartleys and Frankettes, right? Nobody uses those for many of the products nowadays until they came out, like peanut M&Ms and these really small ones, and then they become popular again. So these are all commodities that suffer from market volatility quite a bit. Okay, the next page, field crops, I wanted to highlight down in the lower right-hand corner, timber products. there was a large drop there, and I wish I had some analysis, but I do not. We get this number from the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration, so when they, when they turn in their timber or whatever, it's taxed, and so they have a good count of everything that's sold. And we get the number directly from them, so we don't talk to any of the producers. But I have heard in the past, that, contracts do move from different areas, so maybe our area wasn't targeted for harvest this year. The operations went to a neighboring county, and hopefully it'll come back.
We had that Caldor fire.
That might have been a factor, yeah. Sometimes after fires, they'll come back and want to harvest the wood while it's still standing, while they can get in there, but sometimes there's not a lot left standing. The next page, livestock and poultry, the cattle prices, were up per head, $1,000 per head, which is fantastic. The weight was up a tiny bit, and the number of head pretty much stayed the same. So for the most part, the total value increase of about $4 million that you see there is attributed pretty much to the price per pound that the cattlemen get. We do have a recapitulation on the next page, which is something that this board has been very interested in over the years, to be able to just compare the prior year in all the larger categories. And then, then we have a 10-year comparison on the next page with the graph that just pretty much shows what the overall production is. So while we did have some increases, the timber and the grapes really pulled us down from this year. And it did put us on average for what we saw in, let's say, 2020, 2016, and 2017. But it's nowhere near, what the high that we've seen in the last couple of years. We did do a page on weights and measures because of the, the number of pages you need to make a booklet. So we threw an extra page in there on weights and measures. We don't do that every year, but it is something that our department does, and we do it to support not only the ag industry, but any other device that weighs, measures, or counts a commodity. We go out there and we check it every year. And then the next page is a sustainable ag report, which is required by the Food and Ag Code that we put in there. In 2022, we just started switching over from an oblong spurge project to a product where we take care of Tree of Heaven, which is a preferred host for the spotted lanternfly, which is just now coming into the state. We're starting to see, not in this county, but like in Sacramento or whatever, they're finding the spotted lanternflies. And so if we can control the number of the locations where they live at, then we can trap them in the spots that are left. There's a lot of Tree of Heaven in this county, as it's been mentioned to me before by many people. And, we probably don't have the resources to eliminate all of them, but we do have a program where we use a couple of different chemicals and 2 or 3 different methods, including an injection system where we have a lance that injects a little brass capsule into the cambium layer with an herbicide that slowly kills it over time. That we're trying out this year to be able to reduce the host population for that spotted lanternfly should it inevitably come up to the.
They're pretty hard to kill, aren't they? That Tree of Heaven?
There's Tree of Heaven we're finding to be very tough to kill. The photograph that you see in this report actually highlights that. So there's a couple that you see in the foreground that are starting to get a little crispy and brown and dying a little bit. But as you can see, the ones kind of that are behind that are just doing fine. So a lot of times we're finding a subsequent treatment is required. They're tough. They're tough.
They don't even make good firewood.
They smell kind of funny when you burn them, don't they?
Oh, yeah, it's just kind of I guess there's a reason for it, but it's kind of a junk tree.
Yeah, we would like to kill all of them, and we encourage the public, if they have them on their property, to remove them. They really are not great trees. We have organic production, direct marketing on that last page, and that is pretty much it. So I've gone through the whole report, but I'm sure that as we went through there, I spotted something that you maybe had some questions about, I'd be glad to answer any questions at this time.
Anything from the board? Yes, Supervisor Neto.
Just kind of curious, how often do you see any of the, old scales or measuring devices out of calibration, I guess you might say?
So it depends on the device. So the ones that we have most interest about is gas stations. Let's be honest, we get a lot of complaints about the gas stations. We probably receive a half dozen to a dozen complaints per year. And when we go back and follow up on those, about half of those, there's an issue where we have to tag them out one way or the other. Again, I don't have the stats with me because I didn't think about it, but probably a handful, maybe 4 or 5 per year that we have to red tag out. But that would usually be, it won't be a whole station. It'll be like one pump out of like 10 or whatever. If the whole station was predominantly out in the favor, not of the customer, but of the business or whatever, then we would shut down the whole thing, and we've never had to do that in this county. I think that the larger concern at this time for the gas station industry on that is the rampant use of skimmers that are stealing people's credit card information. And there's also a new device that the scammers are using that installs it into the machine that allows people to change the price for themselves. So they'll change it to like a penny a gallon, and they'll just, empty the gas tank, right? Usually those are like the 24-hour, the big 24-hour ones, so they can do a lot of gallons before they get caught or whatever. But they're little mini computers now, so they're subject to fraud.
My question is, I turned in a complaint to you from a constituent about evasive weed.
Yes.
Did you ever have a chance to go take a look?
Could you remind me which?
I want to say it was up on Ridge Road. There was, I forget what it was right now.
That was an email, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, we did. Did I not respond to you on the email, or did I respond directly to that guy?
I think you responded directly to him, because
Yeah, I will follow up this week. I'll make a note of it.
Okay, thank you. Anybody from the public? Anybody on Zoom?
Not at this time.
Well, thank you, Eric, for
Thank you, board. Have a great day.
ever. Okay, on to 2C, Elections Department. Discussion on possible action relative to an ordinance relating to the adoption of electronic filing requirement for campaign finance disclosures.
We'll see if they are going to come present. Otherwise, I can answer any questions for this.
Or you can skip it and come back to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
The next one.
Okay, we'll go on to 2D, Board of Supervisors, discuss possible action relative to the appointment of primary and alternate delegate for the 2023-2024 CSAC Board of Directors. Note, Supervisor Forrester is the current primary delegate, and Supervisor Brown serves as the alternate.
Do they both want to serve in that capacity again?
Well, I'd like to do it one more year, since that'll be my swan song.
Swan song, yeah, of course. I'm fine with it.
Good.
I'm fine with it.
I appreciate that.
Comment.
Supervisor Brown?
Yeah, no, it's all good.
Then I'd make a motion that we approve Forrester as a primary delegate and Brown as an alternate.
Second. Public comment.
Do we have any public comment? Anybody from Zoom? Oh, we don't have a Zoom control person. I don't see any hands up.
Any hand raised, though.
Okay, I'm gonna call for the vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, that's 5-0. Review and possible approval of September 26, 2023 Board of Supervisors meeting minutes.
Move approval.
Second.
Call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we'll take a couple minutes here to,
Heather, go get them.
could take a break and come back at 10:20, right before the public hearing, so we could slide into our 10:15. And,
Is everybody okay with that?
Yep.
Sure.
Okay, we'll be in, oh, wait a second.
Carol, you can bid some more now.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for making the meeting exciting.
We appreciated it. We've approved both 2D and 2E, just for your knowledge.
Okay, thank you.
Elections is coming down now.
Elections is,
Okay, and then we'll take.
Kim is on her way, right? Who's on the way?
Ms. Machado from Elections is on her way.
Okay.
Then we'll just take a break till 10:30.
Yeah. Now, we know you're new, but you gotta sit there and you put stuff before us. You gotta be here.
Sorry.
Just teasing. So if you wouldn't mind explaining the, what's going on for.
The item
TC?
before you today is in order to take electronic filings.
Okay.
It is something that several counties across the nation do now in order to preserve records better, but in order to be convenient for both the filer and the filing.
Okay.
So this will allow all of your campaign statements for all candidates. So that is all of your annual, semi-annual filings, but also pre-elections that are due. Those will also be able to file electronic, along with your 700s. So the 700 is a big piece for the county. That is something that we file for all of the employees, besides all of the districts. So that will allow everybody to file electronically. So that will be able to have a workflow in order to send everybody an email. So instead of me sending a courtesy email to you, you will get an electronic email from the system reminding you, okay, you have a filing due, whether it's a pre-election filing or just your annual 700. Depends on what filer has set up in their record.
You said this allows them to do it, but it's a mandatory, isn't it?
Well, once we set the ordinance, yes, we will have to receive it electronically. So I know some of our 87-200 filers already file electronically, but this will allow the employees, along with all the other special districts who file 700s, but it'll also allow the campaign statements to file electronically. Now, the 460s, you can still file paper-wise, but the 700 will become an electronic filing.
I mean, I'd like it better if it allowed you to do it electronically, not made you do it electronically.
Me too.
But if we do, if we approve this, then it'll be mandatory, correct?
For the 700, yes.
For the 700s.
Oh, only for that one?
Yes, that is the mandatory. The campaign statements have their different rules because of file retention, but the 700, the conflict of interest code, does become electronic.
How come it says here, adoption of an ordinance is not required for the use of an electronic filing system for Form 700s?
It does state that.
On the bottom, page 33, the memo on the second to last paragraph.
Okay, I'm sorry, I would have to review that again.
I think that this form does, so if you look at, I could show you too.
It just says
It says,
wired.
1.01040, any elected officer, candidate, committee, or other person required to file statements, reports, or other documents required by the Political Reform Act shall file those statements, reports, or other documents online, basically. So I think this ordinance is for the campaign financing, because I don't think you need an ordinance for
the
700 forms.
Okay.
But the 700 forms, in conjunction with this, will also move electronic.
But the 460 will still not be mandatory to do it electronically. You can still do it by paper.
The 460 is the campaign?
Campaign.
Yeah, well, the way I read this, it says shall file those statements, reports, or other documents electronically. So I think it's required.
But that's scanning and then loading it up into the system.
It's actually entering data into the system.
Okay.
I don't like that at all. I like doing mine by paper.
Okay.
So I'm not gonna vote for this. Do we have to? Is it required by state law?
But you can take your paper one and scan it, right, and file that, correct?
No, that's what I just asked, and
That's a yes, or?
now I got a no out of that.
I guess we need to.
You have the data entry it.
Why don't we
I
hold
think
this?
it says authorized, doesn't say require, but, I don't know, I have to probably read,
Yeah, because my Form
state law.
700 has like a whole extra sheet that I add, and it's a little complicated, so I just,
Yeah.
I believe
can't
that
scan it.
there is fields that you would enter that into.
it's way too many fields to enter. It's like 5 pages of stuff.
Your-
We
your
would
sev-
keep your profile of that information.
Again, this is not your 700.
Oh, okay.
This is the campaign.
Oh,
If you-
okay.
If you receive contributions totaling less than $2,000, it does not apply.
Okay.
So I guess the way, preface, to get my mind back, the way he's reminding me right now, it is for the campaign side, you don't have to do it for the 700, but it'll allow the whole system, I guess, for us to be
But
implemented
it makes it mandatory electronic filing for the 460.
for the campaign side.
For the 460, for the campaign side.
Yes.
I don't mind if somebody wants to do it electronically, it's fine. But I don't like mandating that somebody has to.
But
It
you
says-
don't-
it says,
yeah.
it says also here that may require, so I don't think it's something that we have to do necessarily. Is that correct, Greg?
Well, I'm just going through it right now, and so subsection C says, in any instance in which an original statement, report, or other document must be filed with the Secretary of State. So I don't know what that triggers.
Well, that's for local offices, only the 410 is filed directly with the Secretary.
It says, the filer may elect to file the copy with the Registrar of Voters in paper format or through the Registrar of Voters electronic filing system. So perhaps it is both, or alternative.
Given the questions here, I think we should
We
push
can
it.
bring it back and have further
push it back in 2 weeks.
Okay. Does anybody have any problem with that, bringing it back?
No.
You're okay with that? Okay, we'll postpone this so we
Thank you.
get an
And I
update.
do apologize. I was actually in the middle of the system training right now, trying to learn more about it because I do apologize. I came from a district that did not do its 700s within its election department. So the 700 is something in my 20 years experience I do not have, and I am actually trying to learn more and more every day. So I do apologize.
I appreciate you trying to learn more.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, this item 2C is postponed till next board meeting. And so we are in recess till 10:30. Okay, we'll bring the meeting back to order. We're working on 3A on public hearing, consideration of Planning Commission's recommendation to approve the request for a zoning change from R1A, single-family residence and agricultural zoning district, to AG, exclusive agricultural zoning district, in conjunction with a request to establish 2 new CLCA contracts consisting of 444 acres and 719 acres. And I'm not going to read all the APNs. And there we go.
Morning, Mr. Chair, board members.
Morning.
Brady with the Planning Department. So the applicants in this application, they are requesting a zone change for this 1,163 acres, and they're going to put it into 2 separate Williamson Act contracts. When the Ag Advisory Committee reviewed it, they had no objection because it more than met the qualifications for agricultural contracts. And then it went before the Planning Commission last month. Planning Commission also recommended approval of the zone change, which is a requirement to get into the Williamson Act. That's how we regulate the difference between property that's in versus property that's out of the Williamson Act. It has its own zoning district. Normally, when a property moves from the existing ag district into the Williamson Act district, it's categorically exempt from CEQA because the uses don't change. This property is currently all R1A, so there is the potential for increased uses, but what we've done with these contracts and a couple of prior contracts is those contracts would still require the conditional use permit in the future if someone wanted to do the more intense land uses. That way we can still process movement into the Williamson Act as a categorically exempt act as far as CEQA is concerned.
What would be the more intense uses?
Tasting rooms, event centers.
Okay,
Those are 2 that would come to mind.
all right.
Any other questions to the board?
Nope.
Okay, open the public hearing. Anybody want to come for the board? Anybody on Zoom?
Not at this time.
Okay, do I have a motion to close public hearing?
So move.
Second.
Call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, back to the board for discussion.
I'll make the motions to adopt the resolutions approving the California Land Conservation Act contracts number 459 and number 460. Authorize board chair to sign the resolution and contracts and adopt an ordinance approving the zone change from R1A, single-family residential and agricultural district, to the AG exclusive agricultural district for the subject parcels, and also include the recommended findings.
Second.
Okay, call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. Thank you very much. We're on to 3B, consideration of Planning Commission's recommendation to approve a request for a variance from the front 25 feet yard setback required to allow construction of a detached garage 10 feet from the property line.
Good morning. Nicole Shepard with the Planning Department. The applicant, Lisa Saunders, has requested a variance from the Amador County Code, Chapter 19.24040, R1 District Regulations generally. This code requires a 25-foot standard setback from the front property line for all structures. This variance, if approved, would allow the construction of a detached garage 10 feet from the property line. The Technical Advisory Committee reviewed the project on July 20th, 2023, and had no technical objection to the project. It was then forwarded to the Amador County Planning Commission, where they recommended approval of the project along with finding it exempt from CEQA under Section 15305, Class 5 of the state CEQA guidelines. Following the public hearing, the board may determine the adequacy of the proposed notice of exemption under CEQA, as well as then approve or deny the proposed variance.
Okay, anything from the board?
No, it looks like there's no opposition, so.
The one thing that I brought up to Chuck Beatty was, as we're bringing this closer to property line, you know, we've done this in various, you know, Kirkwood and all the rest of these, and I'm afraid of our transportation folks. Can we bring down the mic just a little bit? Thank you. One of the biggest problems I'm seeing is that if we've had some good snow years the last couple of years, and if we're plowing our snow, are we gonna be damaging any of the property, you know, their stuff? So I'm wondering if down the road, we should be talking about a variance to allow our own transportation. They would not be held liable for, you know, standard snow operations, at least in the high country. So that's not something we can really talk about here, but I just wanted to point that out.
Seems like now's the time to talk about it.
Okay.
Can we add that as a finding?
Possibly, although we don't know anything about what the right-of-way is, what the road is. I mean, it gets a little murky when you say, like, so yes, you maybe could, but then, you know, if a snow plow.
Well,
you could say, well, there are situations where you sign a release, and if something beyond the normal happens, the release is no good anyway.
Because my thought on it behind is, you know, during last January, you know, we had in the Mace Meadows area, you know, we had 4 foot of snow. It had frozen up, and there was a lot of ice that was up there. And if normal snow operations are happening, you know, you can build a pretty good berm of snow up there. During Kirkwood, they ran out of places to put snow. So as they're pushing the snow somewhere, you know, my thought process on this is it because they're building it so close to the edge. On normal snow operations, you know, can this damage their facility? If a snowplow actually ran into the building, that's a different story. But I'm just talking about, you know, normal snow operations and ice, you know, moving across from where it is.
So is 10 feet from the property line, is that to the edge of the road, 10 feet?
Not normally.
I don't know. I don't know if there's a right-of-way or dedicated right-of-way. Do you know?
I don't know off the top of my head, no.
I mean, to get into these issues, we'd have to send it back. I don't know that we can answer this. I mean, theoretically, we could, well, to be honest, I don't know if that's a legal condition, because we're making them, we're making give up something that other property owners don't have to give up.
But they're far enough away from the edge.
Well, yeah, but, well, maybe. I don't know what the,
Okay.
I don't know what.
I'll pull it. I don't want to stop this from happening. I just wanted to question it more or less than anything else. That's what
And I think what Greg is alluding to too is, you know, we put snow places, but if you get right down to it, technically, where could you put that snow? Legally.
But as normal operations, we're just plowing it along, you know, we're
I
not,
understand that.
you know, so we're just pushing it up on person's property.
Exactly.
Why don't we
Actually,
just leave it
Kirkwood,
as
it's not
this
even
today,
ours.
but you might want to have this looked at in the future when you approach these kind of situations.
That's what I'm kind of looking for. If we just
I think if
future
if
reference.
we see these upcountry in the future, maybe we check in with Public Works as to whether this is an issue for them.
Will
Agreed.
do, thank you.
Okay, do we have any public comment on this? Yes, sir. Morning.
Larry White, if any of you don't know me, Larry White from Pine Grove. I'm representing the Saunders. I don't know if you have in your packet the actual drawing that we have, but the edge of pavement to the property line is like 15 feet, something like that. And they're still going to continue to use the existing driveway to access the thing. So your concern in this particular instance, I don't think would be a concern.
And that's fine. You know,
Yeah.
my biggest,
I just don't want these folks to lose this because of your concern right
and
now.
I'm not either. You know, and I'm not pushing for that for myself either. I'm just, the biggest thing that I know in Mace Meadows, you know, because I live in that area.
Right.
There's just some, you know, there's downhill areas.
Right.
And then you're plowing it, and then it's just going right off the edge, and I can see a nice ball rolling down the hill.
Right, and we all know in the upcountry area that we put our vehicles in four-wheel drive to get out of our driveways to get past the berm that the plow has put.
That's it.
So that's pretty much.
Yeah, I think it's 17 feet.
If anybody has any questions, I'm available.
Thank you, sir.
I'm gonna go back to the back of the class.
Okay, anybody else? Anybody off of Zoom?
Not at this time.
Okay, do I have a motion to close public hearing?
Move. Second.
Call for the vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, 5-0. Back to the board for discussion.
I'll make a motion then to approve the request for the variance from, in the front, property line from 25 feet to 10 feet to allow construction of attached garage and approve the recommended findings.
Second.
Okay. Again, call for the vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. Okay, this meeting is adjourned until Tuesday, October 24th at 9 a.m. Closed sessions begins at 8:30.
Goodbye.